Hi, I'm Marissa of Marissa Orlich Interiors.
And I'm Tyler Fox of J2 Architecture.
And today we just want to talk about a space that we are inspired by. And I have a fondness for the beautiful city of Boston and all its history that has brought it together over the years. And there is an absolutely beautiful hotel that was once a jail, but it has now been converted into um, just a beautiful space.
That is absolutely gorgeous. And we were looking at this before. I'm so happy you mentioned this. I love Boston.
Yes.
I go at least once a year. And I hope that everyone who's listening and watching our videos has been to Boston. If not, they have to go to Boston. And this is now on my list of places to see and experience because this
Now
is
we're
just absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, now we're promoting tourism on our videos. But so this was once a city jail, and they have since transformed it into to what it was, to what it is today, a luxury hotel. So, Tyler, if you could tell us a little bit more about the history, and well, we can talk about a little bit about the design after.
Yeah, and see what I love about that space is
Mm-hmm.
that it so much resembles a jail, and that's not something you see very often at all. Architecture of jails is never something you'd ever really think about unless you specialize in it. But it has that center atrium, this wraparound balconies and decks, and you see the use of some of the iron doors and the steel doors and grates and railings, and all of that is intact mostly, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And just some of these high these windows, and it's just really a gorgeous space. But the building, did a little research, designed in 1851 by Gridley James Fox. I'm just going to take a look just to make sure I have the name absolutely correct. Gridley J.F. Bryant, Gridley
Mm-hmm.
James Fox Bryant. And it was originally called the Charles Street Jail. And this was the first example of what they call now the Boston granite style of architecture.
Yes.
And if you look at before images of this building, just how just grounding it is and how just immense it is in the middle of the city is kind of really interesting. And he lived just within the 19th century. He designed so much of Boston that I never even realized until really researching him. And you see his style of architecture, and you really see it all throughout the city, but this was one of the first.
Mm-hmm.
And his motto throughout his life, especially towards the end, was that he hated to see the demolition of buildings. So I love that this is kind of
Mm-hmm.
carried through to today. And this is a very recent renovation in the last maybe 20
Yes.
years. And I love that they took that, kind of his kind of vision of this building
Right.
is still there, So
Right.
I
They
love that.
really kept the structure intact because this was only I closed, I believe, in 1990. So that was
Mhm.
only about 30 years ago. The last prisoner was transported out of it. And then it took ownership by, I think, Mass General Hospital took ownership of it. And then it kind of just sat vacant for a while. And then finally it was handed over to a developer who really, thank goodness, for the sake of historic preservation and everything good, it really gave it a second life. And
This is what I love about the historic preservation type
Mhm.
work. It's such a great balance of just the modern and the history of the building is so intact.
Right, because they let the building speak for itself, which I think is uh, something that needs to sometimes be done more with historic
Mhm.
preservation. You're putting more things into it, whereas this they really kept the integrity of the building, and they kept the walkways. They didn't
Love it.
close them
Yeah.
up. They kept the center atrium. They kept all these windows, which was probably a source of natural light. And Then they had a development team. I believe you know which development team went Carpenter and Co.
Yeah, Carpenter
Development
and Company. Yep.
and Company took on the project, and then they had the interior design team, which was tasked with creating all these little nooks and conversation spaces that are involved in hospitality design. But I think just between the lighting, because if you think about it, you're not getting any sources of lighting from down below. They did all the lighting via the surrounding portion, and all their central light is coming from these great big windows,
Yeah,
which
it just really does integrate so nicely. And you see the escalator going down, the stair going down to that
mm-hmm,
lower level.
mm-hmm,
There's some images we saw of the bar, the restaurant, these little seating areas and pockets of just spaces. I mean, it really is. They just did such a great job, such an interesting building, and just
right,
to preserve the history of it is just so
mm-hmm.
interesting. And I can't wait to next time I'm in Boston to check it out.
Yeah, it's a great space, and I think a beautiful example of historic preservation and how you can be inspired by things of the past, but you can take them into modern life of the 21st century. So
Definitely.
if you're inspired by any spaces, please let us know. And this is just one that I've been inspired by over the years. And I am Marissa of Marissa Orlich Interiors.
And I'm Tyler Fox of JM2 Architecture.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.